As you know, you already know the general idea of the project because the last group did such a good job explaining that. So we have our basic floor plan, which they had as well. And we decided to leave the rooms basically the same as what they initially wanted because we didn't think that they would need the extra facilities that we would usually need. They're, what they need is more centralized to where they are. So we just left it the way that they wanted it. Basically, we have our waiting room here with just the chairs set up. We didn't think that they would need a receptionist area per se, so we just left that. We have our consultation room, and oh, I can't even read that. This is our treatment sterilization room. We're gonna have like an autoclave in there and a refrigerator to keep all the medicines and stuff. We generally wanted this to be almost a net zero energy thing, and Cal will get into that in a little bit.
If you want.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Alright, we looked a little closer at the electrical load since it is a medical center. We figured that we're going to need some essential electronic equipment. We took a look at the loads because it's an off-grid system. We included things like medical refrigerators, sterilization things, and we came up with a total wattage of 1,500 watts, which was about half of the 3,000 watts that we were allowed to have. And then we just designed a PV system accordingly, and the cost is shown down here. Yeah, so we took a look at the loads, we found the wattage, found what batteries we're gonna need, what solar panels we're gonna need, and we got a cost estimate for that. This is like a low estimate of the electronic needs. So while we do have more wattage permitting, that's what we're at right now. So.
Back into the floor plan over here. This is going to be our tent, and it's a little hard to do on Revit, but if you look down here, this is what it's going to look like. And there's going to be curtains in between these. These are going to be the 3 beds where 3 patients can be examined at once. And that's going to look like over here where it's going to be set up with the curtains, and that can be easily cleaned and everything. And we also made this so it's 20 feet away so that the patients that might have Ebola aren't really with the patients that are going to be in the health clinic. And then back into the health clinic, we're going to make this out of bricks because those are easily accessible in Africa. They can make them there. And then on the inside, we're going to cover that with cement because you can easily clean that off.
For the roofing, we're going to do a thatched roof, which I think the other group mentioned. It's just ideal for insulation. It's locally manufactured. They know how to make it. And it's waterproof. The solar panels were somewhat of an issue with the thatched roofing. We looked into that a bit, and it is possible to put solar panels on it. It requires a little more of an advanced mechanism, we think, but we have seen examples of solar panels on that roof.
Another option we had with that was you can also do standalone solar panels, but in this project, he wanted them on the roof. So we're aiming for the roof, but if that wouldn't work, we can also do standalone.
For lighting for the whole entire facility, we're going to have emergency lights, and then we're going to use small skylights that will go through the thatch roof that'll use less energy. So it'll be a lot of natural daylight because the windows are limited because they wanted them in certain places. So it should be lit all the time, and the bulbs are low wattage. So that'll keep our energy usage down for this facility.
In terms of water heating, we didn't want to add that to the electrical loads, so we found a method called solar water heating. It involves a solar collector, which looks just like a solar panel up there, that just absorbs heat from the sun, and then powers a water tank with a coiled copper wire inside of it, which just heats the water naturally. It's very efficient. It's very ideal for our system.
Ventilation for the whole entire building. The thatch roof, I'm sorry, I keep bumping this. The thatch roof does allow for a lot more natural ventilation, but instead of using ceiling fans, we decided that we would implement window fans to keep the air moving through instead of just keeping the air inside. So that's kind of where we went with that because we know it is very humid and very hot there.
In addition to these 3 rooms right here, where the patients will be, we also have access to the ceramic tiling, so we thought that we would do that because that, again, you can also clean. For the waiting room, Dr. Warner wanted it to be more like a PT thing, so we talked about painting it either like a light yellow or a light green. And then we also said we could add some art maybe provided by the people from Africa to make them feel a little bit more at home.
And we have our emergency transportation here that We couldn't find any other vehicle, so we just used the ambulance. We know they're not gonna really have one there. But we just decided to show that we would have transportation available.
Oh, and as for the location, we said we didn't want it to be close to a body of water if that's an option, because Ebola can be spread through fluids.
That might be more concerned with mosquitoes than the Ebola.
Your thought is patients come in your triage tent, if they do have Ebola, what, are they staying there? Is there an outside, like how are you segregating at that point?
We'll probably separate them to an emergency vehicle, some sort of, little parking lot or something for pickup. Right now, it's just ciphering out who has Ebola and who doesn't. Whoever is clean can enter the medical center.
Yeah, the use of the tent is just to diagnose them.
But yeah, there will be separate exits for Ebola and non-Ebola patients.
Have you considered the staff and their safety? If they're working in the tent and then entering the clinic, are there decontamination areas
We're gonna keep
space?
the staff inside of the medical center and inside the tent separate. I know the tent, at least when we watched the video, seemed like a very separate organization that was dealing with the treatment and diagnosis of Ebola.
Basically, in the tent, they mostly wear hazmat suits so
Mhm.
that they don't get infected and they have to cover all theirs.
So there's somewhat two separate entities.
So within the tent, there's some place for them to remove their clothing and safely leave the tent with their clothing behind, or?
No, they would have to exit and enter the tent with their hazmat suits.
So is there a decon? And it's probably not part of your
Yeah.
task. Did you talk about a decon area?
Well, I'd like to add to this, there's and Dr. DeGood sent this to me, and we'll look this up, but on the Doctors Without Borders, there's a whole compound design for the whole sequence of getting dressed, dealing with candidates, dealing with people who died. There's a big compound, and some of that has to actually be here too, just for screening. But the main compound with doing that right is
All that other
somewhere else, yeah.
The skylights could be a great way for some lighting. Although I know in this area, when it rains. And so I'm, a little concerned with skylights and the roof and water, leaking around, because it's hard to seal those up. And then doing that with the thatch roof and then with the torrential downpours that they get. I'm just a little concerned about that implementation.
From what we researched in Africa, I know obviously you've got more experience, but from what we saw, it's relatively water sealing. We haven't really considered the heavy downpours that might be there, but since I know that thatch roofing is implemented in Africa, not necessarily in the regions of heavy downpour, but I know.
Well, they'll use it everywhere, but, and also they talked about, the other group, I guess, more talked about it. Pretty much every medical facility I've ever seen has a corrugated steel roof, so it wouldn't look and pretty much anyone with means has a corrugated steel roof. So it might actually, you're trying to make it look more comfortable with thatch roof, but they might be less comfortable thinking that this clinic doesn't have the resources to have a high quality roof. That would be the view, I think, that most people see in the thatch roof is, that's what the poor people have. I don't know if that's.
That's really good insight. We didn't think of that at all. I mean, but we've never been there and known people, so. but
We weren't
that's-
sure what the standards were for medical centers.
And I haven't been in Sierra Leone, but that would certainly be true in the Gambia.
Yeah.
Yeah, our
Any
main goal with
health
the
center that someone has built.
Our main goal with the thatch roof was just the ventilation, so,
Maybe just a natural resource.
Yeah, local manufacturing.
yeah.
Yeah, the corrugated steel isn't.
If we looked into past medical centers in Sierra Leone and maybe got a feel for what their standard is, then we can adjust.
We should move to the next group. Okay, thank you.
Questions?